Lester couldn't take his eyes off the man's mouth. The way his lips flapped and fluttered, his tongue slithering back and forth, it was like he was trying to speak. But of course, that wasn't possible, was it?
Are you sure he's dead?
Said Lester to the two police officers who stood in the kitchen beside him. No pulse, no breathing, said Officer Dave. He's deader than Tom's dick. Hey, 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 said Officer Tom. Your wife sure don't complain. Officer Dave playfully pulled back his fist, pretending to wind up a punch. Watch it, or the boys downtown will get one more body.
But his mouth,
Said Lester.
it's moving.
That's just the nerve endings firing, like when you cut the head off a chicken. Lester scratched his cheek.
I've never cut off a chicken's head.
But the police officers had already turned back to their notebooks. The dead man's apartment was dark, illuminated only by the red and blue police lights which flashed through the windows. Lester couldn't help but notice how similar the place was to his own, with its stained floor tiles and its faded and peeling yellow wallpaper. Even the olive green couch in the living room reminded him of the one his grandma had left him. So who are you? Asked Officer Dave, closing his notebook. You part of the family?
No,
Said Lester.
I live across the hall.
How long you know him? Asked Officer Tom.
I didn't really know him, I guess.
Said Lester. Well shit, said Officer Dave. You shouldn't be in here.
I just wanted to find out how he died.
Fat guy like him? Said Officer Tom. Heart attack, most likely. Officer Tom patted Officer Dave on his big round belly. You better eat your veggies or you'll be next. You son of a... Officer Dave grabbed Officer Tom in a headlock and used his fist to tussle the man's hair. As the two of them laughed and exchanged mock punches, Lester returned his attention to his dead neighbor.
Not the way I'd like to go,
thought Lester. The dead man was naked except for a pair of pink boxers, which made his hairy, obese body all the more grotesque. Scattered on the floor around him were dried spaghetti noodles and dozens of unopened cans of food. It seemed that as he was dying, the man had grabbed hold of a food rack and pulled it down on top of himself. Even now, his cold blue fingers were clenched around the metal bars. Two men in white entered the apartment, rolling a gurney between them. All right, where is he? Said the first gurney man. Jesus Christ, said Officer Dave. Took you guys long enough. You try carrying this thing up 5 flights, said the other gurney man. Fine, fine, said Officer Dave. He's here in the kitchen. The gurney men bent down and tried to push aside the food rack, but the dead man held it tightly in place. Shit, said Officer Tom, laughing. This guy's so fat he's taking food with him to the afterlife. Not to worry, said one of the gurney men. He opened a black leather bag and removed a saw. Kneeling, he began sawing at the dead man's fingers. There was a spurt of blood, then a dry grinding as the saw cut bone. One by one, the dead man's fingers were removed. The gurney men shoved aside the food rack, then made heaving sounds as they lifted the corpse. All right, let's get, said Officer Dave, and the two police officers left the apartment. The gurney men followed soon after, rolling the corpse between them, all the while, its wet mouth still quivering.
Nerve endings,
thought Lester.
How strange.
Lester stood alone in the dim light of the dead man's apartment, police lights flashing through the windows, 10 little fingers floating in a pool of blood.